Welcome to the Cilantro Diaries podcast with Lorenzo Gomez III, presented by Voz Media, amplifying the visionary voices of San Antonio. This episode is sponsored by The Local, San Antonio's #1 electric people mover. With The Local, catch SA vibes on local rides.
All right, let's do this.
It's go time. Dude, thank you for being episode 0, episode 1, whatever you want to call it.
Salud.
Salud. All right, before I begin, this is a historic day for me. So
Yeah.
I brought gifts.
All right.
This is the book that started it all. There's some stickers in there too. And the reason I picked that one is because it's very puro San Antonio. Or that's at least what I tried to capture in it. So I wanted to give you a copy of that.
I love it, man.
And then this is the...
And let me read what it says.
Yeah.
To Beto, thank you for your years of friendship, your service to this city, to this great city. I love it, man. Thank you, man.
No, thank you, bro. Kidding me?
Thank you.
And then I got you a shirt. This is also a first edition. Hasn't been released
wow.
to the public
Let's
yet.
see. Oh, wow.
Forgive the wrinkles.
Oh, wow. Look at that. It's pretty cool.
And if my mom's watching, that is not marijuana. Just for the record, okay? That's not, because I know she's going to watch it.
I love it. No, this is great. This is awesome, man. Thank you, man.
No, thank you.
No, this is great. By the way, this book, man, there's like so much substance. So many stories in this book. What I like about this book is like you found inspiration in the most like unlikely place.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, I feel like, especially the HEB stuff, I feel like that's the one that resonates the most with people.
Yeah.
Is, people, it's funny, I had there was a mom and two of her sons were in the play at Cass Tech, and they saw me at my HEB, the one I go to now, and they were like, hey, what's this HEB number? Because the HEB I write about is number 5, which is the Deco one. And she called me out like, what HEB is this? And I was like, man, I think this is like 31 or 13. And she was like, oh, you don't know. And she Googled it, but it was the wrong number. I said, no, I'm pretty sure you're wrong. So we were checking out in 2 different check stands. And I asked my cashier, I said, hey, what number is this one? And it was like 31. And I was like, I knew I was right. And so I see them on the way back, and she was like, I already know I was wrong. And I was like, so I was like, you can't test my HEB trivia. Well, because the thing about HEB is like everybody knows someone who has worked there before or works there currently.
Yeah.
Like it's the most just connected place ever. Everybody had a stint there when they were in high school.
It's like a community place. Right?
Totally, totally. It's like everybody's first job.
It really is.
So like it's just, and I think that's what I wanted to sort of capture in it. And I remember I ran into Craig Boyne, CEO, once, and I never met him before. And I said, the person introducing him was like, oh, Lorenzo wrote a book about HEB. He said, well, I know, I've read it. And he asked me what HEB I went to. And I said, oh, I go to Macrelis now. I said, but, I'm waiting for it to gentrify because it doesn't have an olive bar. I was like, number 8 at almost, they have an olive bar. That's when you know your HEB is getting fancy, right?
Man.
You have an olive bar.
Yeah.
So we're far away
Almost there? Yeah, maybe.
We have a long ways to go.
Good.
We're still barbacoa and the big red in the actual bag, right? That's how we roll.
I love it, man. No, but I think, what you've done with this book is also normalize the idea that you got to start somewhere.
Yes.
Right? People think that, if you want to pursue a career, for example, in tech, right, that you got to graduate as an engineer and become an engineer and work at a big, Fortune 500 company like Amazon or Google, whatever.
Yeah.
And no, you just got to start somewhere, man.
Yes.
And that's what I keep telling young people, right? It's like when they ask me, how do you end up building a tech company or doing something in tech? The more you put yourself out there, the more you're going to find passion in the process, right? Of doing whatever it is.
Right.
And if it turns out to be tech, for example, every movement, everything that you do, being intentional about the idea of potentially working in tech down the line, you're going to end up there, Like, you're going to be all right. That's the thing. You're going to be all right.
Yes. You're going to be all right. And also,
you're going to be all right.
Yeah, and also it's this notion that, and someone else actually told this to me. They said, there's a lot of books out there about how to be Steve Jobs. And this book is not about how to be Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. This book is how do I have a good career?
Yeah.
Right? So there's a million more people statistically that are never going to be CEO, but they're going to be an employee at a company. And that's great. And that's what I wrote it for.
Which is amazing.
Which is amazing. So it's like, how do you be the best employee if you're not going to go down that path? And that's what it was. And that person that told me that was a very successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he said, there's more people that are going to do that, Lorenzo, than be Steve Jobs. And so your book is helpful to more people. And I hadn't thought about it when I wrote it, but that's sort of, that was sort of the benefit of like, yeah, man, I want anybody. Matter of fact, I had a young girl at A&M. So there's a class at A&M that made it required reading. The professor has me come in every year and talk to the class. And this one girl that was in the class, she graduated. She went immediately into a corporate job. And then she LinkedIn messaged me and she said, hey, I just want to thank you for Cilantro Diaries. She goes, in my first week, it helped me avoid a disastrous situation. She didn't tell me what it was, but I was like, oh, dang. I was like, I should have paid more attention to like what I was writing. But she was just very thankful that it helped her because she was using the actual principles in there. And I was like, dude, that's it. I can die and go to heaven, like that's what you do it for.
But that's what it's about, right? It's how do you find yourself being a great intrapreneur, right?
Exactly.
And I think
inside,
right? And it's a great start, right? If you want to become later on an entrepreneur, whatever, but start somewhere.
Yes.
Do it right.
Yeah.
And then you become Lorenzo Gomez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to be better than me, okay? I'm not sure I even want to be myself sometimes. So, yeah.
Why is that?
Oh man, you grow up, and actually, I write a lot in there about a lot of the insecurities I have. I think that there was a season in my career where I did not know how to control my mouth, and I would run my mouth, and it held me back for a long time. And actually, that's the Cilantro Diaries is one part of the book is there's all this great advice that other people like Graham gave me. Follow their advice because it was great advice. And then the other part of the book is, and here's a bunch of crap I did that was a disaster. Don't do any of that stuff. Yeah. And I list a lot of the stuff that I did poorly or just attitudes I had that were bad. And so that's sort of, I think that's why.
Which is normal.
Which is normal, yeah. But most people want to give you the highlight reel.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, I'm trying to do my best to say, look, my career I've had a great career.
Yeah.
But it's flawed just like everybody else, got up and down.
Like everything.
Like everything, yeah. And I feel like that's sort of the San Antonio ethos, which is everybody really knows. Maybe it's a little essence of puro. I'm not sure, but I think that it's like you have this city that's got so much potential, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but it's got all of these flaws, which I resonate with that because I'm like, I don't have it all together, at all.
But that's what makes the city great.
Absolutely,
and that's what makes life so great. Because I feel like some of the most important people I ever met in my life are still trying to figure out what life is about.
Yes.
Like it's a never-ending process.
Oh, absolutely.
And you have to continuously be improvising.
Yeah.
And adapting and reinventing yourself, right? And that's why this concept of what you're doing with this podcast, there's so many unwritten rules to life.
Right.
But at the same time, there's so many unwritten moments where you got to break those rules.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all about.
If you read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, for those of you that don't know, he's the founder of Nike, and he has one of my favorite quotes of the book. He keeps repeating it. He says, "We are remembered for the rules we break." Yeah. And he says it over and over, and I just thought, oh man, it's such, like the punk rocker in me is like, yes, I'm all about that. Yeah. And I think that I feel like that's sort of like you take the Spurs, for example, the Spurs are not normal. They don't operate on the rules.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that sort of encompasses that we break the rules, like it's weird because it's almost an oxymoron. David Robinson broke all the rules by just being nice. Yeah. Like that was his version of being punk rock. Was he's gonna be so respectful and so nice that it was so completely abnormal to everybody in the NBA, and that was sort of harnessing the San Antonio spirit, which everybody
and that was his mantra.
That was his mantra. Exactly.
That was who he was.
Yeah. Even though he was jacked and he could
the admiral.
He could snap someone's, but he was just famous for that. And I just think he just took a different path. To me, I think that's part of the San Antonio ethos is that.
Which, by the way, his son, David Jr., a good friend of ours.
Great
dude. Yeah. He's great. And he's like the nicest person too, man.
Yeah.
He's so cool,
Yeah. Matter of fact, it's upsetting. I'm like, you can't be like that cool and nice. Like, you need to give me something. You need to give me a flaw. You know what I mean? I need you to, but he's such a good dude. I was standing next to them once, and it's like he's 6'3", and I was like, I knew I was short.
Yeah.
But I that's when I knew I was short. I was like, oh my god. Anyways, so he's a great dude, and a testament to how he came back.
Yeah.
He didn't have to come back.
Yeah.
And I think
He chose to come back.
He chose to come back to San Antonio, and I think that's one of the great questions that I want people to really ponder is how do we become a city that more people choose to come back? Not that they were forced to, not, oh, my spouse moved here and so I have to put up with the city. How do you make the choice like David Jr., and he's thriving, and I think that it's a little flicker of hope for other people that are out there that can have a career here.
But see, when I think about that, is how do we tell the story of San Antonio?
Yes.
But the story of San Antonio is a wild story, man. It's a wild story.
Yes.
Like dating more than 300 years. I mean, to the days of the Alamo as well, right?
Yeah.
To the days of this region of the United States now was Mexico at some point.
Yeah.
But I feel like San Antonio is like a city of pioneers.
Yes. Yes.
It's a city that makes you want to do something, build something, shape its future. And I think that's the ethos that attracts me so much to this city, man.
Dude.
And of course, it's South Texas, right? And I love that, man. It's just it's incredible.
Well, I want to jump off there, but before, my first question that I want to ask is sort of a playful one, which is how often do you get mixed up with Beto O'Rourke?
Oh my God. Oh my God! Right now on the campaign trail is insane.
It's insane. I would tell someone, I'm like, no, dude, like these two dudes could not be more different, like at all. And like what? And I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I'm like, what's the whitest white boy you've ever seen in your life? And then Beto is like a true Latino, Hispanic, you know.
Yeah, no, he's cool. Look, I like Beto, man. I got to meet him.
That's cool. Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
Several times, there was this. So I was part of this like effort. The Harvard Kennedy School was organizing an event in El Paso, and they called me. It's like, maybe because my name is Beto too. I don't know. I don't know.
We're like, we'll put two Beto Square.
Yeah, I know. And so they're like, hey, can you help us? Get in touch with Beto. Maybe just because
all the Betos know each other, right?
I had mutual friends, right?
Yeah.
So Andy Brown, he's the county judge of Travis County. I used to work for him.
Oh, cool.
At some point, for his first campaign. And they're like really good friends, right? Andrew was his field director for Texas, and I think also for the national campaign. So I was like, let's connect with Beto, with the other Beto, and we made it happen. And I remember meeting him, and we had an entire day together where, he was greeting the fellows from this program, and it's like a public health advocacy kind of program that really engages like lawyers and all that, and it was from the Harvard Kennedy School and the law school, and it was really cool, man.
That's cool.
But he had just lost.
Oh, really?
His race for governor, and so it was really interesting because he had like the whole beard. He was not not well groomed. He seemed a bit depressed.
Oh,
right?
wow, yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean he was going through it. Right?
Yeah, dude,
and he was super transparent with us, like he was not going through a good moment.
Wow.
And it was really raw.
Really raw, yeah.
But it was great,
Yeah.
and it just showed me the other side of some of these individuals that we see on TV or read about on the news, and it was a really special moment. But one thing was certain, right, which was that he was pushing for this idea that, as Texans and as Americans in general, we should always like defend democracy, right, and always go out and vote and be active in our respective communities. So it was really special. Now, going back to the question about about whether people confuse me with Beto all the time, man. It's crazy.
That's hilarious.
Just because of the name.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's only one Beto in the world, right? I mean, shit.
Well, my Brandy mentor always used to say, people only have room for one story in their mind, and so I feel like it's hard to get them to see, whereas he's not even a San Antonio guy, but
it's funny. Okay,
it is funny.
So I heard this conspiracy theory that supposedly Beto O'Rourke moved to San Antonio, okay?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And, he now has an accent.
Yeah,
He's-
he went through some surgery.
He's a bit
Went through some-
shorter, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah, changed his hair
I'm
and
not,
everything.
I'm not that short, right? I'm like 5'10". Come on, But now he is running for mayor.
Come on.
He changed his last
Hey,
name.
by the way, I love a good conspiracy. So
And
if we can double down on this,
It's crazy, but
I think we should add in some UFO elements and some Bigfoot elements too, because it's.
But
yeah.
it was a story that a friend of mine told me.
That's hilarious.
He was like driving on an Uber or whatever.
You got to add the deep state. The deep state
Yeah.
and the CIA took him, moved him here, reconstructive surgery.
Yeah.
And now
and it changed
there
the
it
last
is.
name, everything, and now he kept the name, the first name. It's
pretty good.
It's pretty good.
You don't want to waste it.
And it was an Uber driver that told my friend that, and my friend was just like shocked. Maybe he had a few drinks and he was just having a good time.
That's awesome.
Entertaining the theory, but I've heard that.
Hey, I mean, look, when the San Antonio Uber driver
Yeah.
is telling you the conspiracy theory, we got to pay attention.
You
to
got to
that.
pay attention.
Yeah,
right?
so we're gonna set the record straight.
No, I
The
am
si-
not Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah, in disguise. Now, actually, someone on Reddit's gonna be like, "Yo, he's saying that to throw us off the trail."
Exactly.
You know what? I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and
when they ask me, I'm gonna be like, "I don't know." bro.
We live in a
Yeah.
post-truth era, right? So, maybe we're not Beto Altomirano, or maybe you're not Lorenzo Gomez, right? At this
Yeah.
point.
Look,
But-
I would love to not be me someday. So that'd be great.
Hey, I hear you, man. I hear you. Same.
That's hilarious, dude. I didn't know that conspiracy theory.
Yeah, so that's one. The other is that we do a lot of phone banking right now on the
Yeah,
campaign
yeah.
trail, so we're calling thousands of people per week, or even knocking on doors, and
Yeah.
my organizers and block walkers are doing an incredible job. But at the door they hear, is he Beto O'Rourke? It's like, no, man, look, this is Beto Altamirano here. It's like that's a different person, different name. No, but is he Beto O'Rourke?
But are you sure?
But are you
sure it's not the same guy?
Because I heard from an Uber driver that
Yeah, you're right. No, actually, well, I was in the meat market at HEB, and someone said, listen, we're just gonna have to put agents out there. you know.
but it's
By
great,
the way,
man.
my
I mean,
goal is in this episode to spring up 10 more conspiracy theories.
I love
okay?
it.
I
I
want
love
there to be, and I just feel like
Good.
you gotta go overboard and saturate.
I love that.
You know
I
what I
love
mean?
that. Yeah, it's true. But I mean, look, we have we share the first the first name, and it's funny, man. But in the end, I think he still has a lot of followers, a lot of people that like him.
I'm sure,
and but I definitely need to make sometimes I need to highlight
Yeah.
and make an effort that hey, I'm not Beto O'Rourke, and that kind of it sucks in a way, right?
Yeah.
Especially since we are in the midst of the campaign and there's a lot of dynamics
Yeah.
going into it. But that's how it is, man.
No, well,
think
I mean,
about it.
it's the reason why I asked it, because when I think about doing interviews like this, I always think about my parents, because I feel like they represent to me the San Antonian that's sort of paying attention, but they're not in it the way we're in it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, like if I can answer the question for them, I know I can answer it for
Which is
other
fair.
people.
Think about it.
Yeah, it's
right.
totally
Like people have like so much going on in their lives.
Yes, that's right.
They have their jobs, they have their families, they have
Yes.
their responsibilities. I mean,
Yes. And San Antonio is weird like that in that, there's like the couple hundred people that know the inner workings of the city, which I wasn't one of them until 10 years ago when I got in the scene. And then it was like, oh, there's all this, insider stuff, which a lot of it's just silly, but I have to realize it's like, it's part of the San Antonio's problem is that nobody translates the inner workings to everybody else.
There.
So like I feel like in my family I'm like the Rosetta Stone. I'd be like, oh, this is how it works, and
This is what's happening.
this is actually what the city manager does, and this is like I didn't know any of that. Matter of fact, I didn't know a city council person I didn't know the name of a city council person till I started working downtown.
Yeah.
And I was probably in my 30s,
So-
which I'm ashamed to say, but it's true.
no, but think about it, right? That's one of the challenges in San Antonio and across the U.S., right?
Yes.
But here's the thing about San Antonio, that if you really want to get involved,
Oh,
you can get involved right away.
totally.
Right?
There's no barrier to entry.
No,
Yeah.
and you're like 1 degree of separation from
Yes.
like engaging with the CEO
Yes.
of Frost Bank
Yes.
or USAA,
It's so true.
and that's what this city does. It invites you to be part of its leadership. It invites you to be part of you wanting to shape its future,
Yes.
right? I keep coming back to that. But it's just so true, man. I remember getting involved in various capacities, right? But it was through like the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Yeah.
I was working there, and I was invited to like luncheons and some leadership trainings and social events, and I just like I attended every single thing I was invited to, and I started meeting everyone.
Yeah.
So you talk about like this circle
Yes.
of decision makers, the leadership bubble or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's made up of people that are intentional
Yes.
with their lives about getting involved in a form of public service,
Right.
or civic engagement, which ultimately also helps their careers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because I do want to stress that while yes, it's not a lot of people making a lot of decisions for the city, the leadership ecosystem is not huge. It is open.
It's very open. And also, that's not normal.
Yeah.
Like most cities, you're not going to get a meeting
Yeah.
with those leaders. There's going to be 10 different people between you and them. There are going to be, 10 people trying to block you,
Yeah.
Trying to work against you. Whereas here, it really is a weird thing. But before we go there, I want to go back a little bit because when I think about the show, I'm in my head. I want to speak to the person that's never heard you before.
Yeah.
But I want to go. Let's start from where you grew up
Yeah.
and how you came to San Antonio because you're from the Valley.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I'm from Mission, Texas,
Okay.
A border town down in the Rio
Which
Grande
I have
Valley.
many relatives in
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of people in San Antonio that are from the Valley.
Yes.
And that's something that is widely celebrated.
Yes.
Right now, when I'm knocking on doors, talking to people, they're like, "Oh, where are you from, Hito?" Well, I'm from the Valley. Oh, my cousin lives there.
You know so and so? Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
He's like, "No, man. Actually, the Valley's pretty big. It's like, do you know?
Yeah.
Fulano tal, yeah. Maybe we have.
Yeah. Show me a picture.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But yes, it was a beautiful upbringing, man. I really I enjoyed it so much. Why? Because I don't know. Being bilingual, bicultural,
Yeah.
being in the middle of two worlds,
Yeah.
both Mexico and the U.S., you get to
It's a unique
Yeah,
perspective.
you capture the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I think that's really unique. And it was a great upbringing. I wouldn't trade for anything. I would say though that it's a very like homogeneous world, right? Where there's a lot of just Latinos, right? And you're not exposed to other cultures,
Right.
besides the Latino culture. Yes, you're exposed to the American culture,
Yeah.
but through the interpretation of the Latino,
Right.
and you're exposed to the Mexican culture
Yes.
through the interpretation of northern Mexicans.
Right.
Which is a really nice clash. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
The food is incredible.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Of course. No. Of course.
And yeah, so my dad, an HVAC technician, and my mother, a school teacher, and I learned the value of hard work through them. And it was just, my parents are really dedicated people, and they taught me a lot, especially my mother. When I was a kid, it was always Spanish at home and English elsewhere, and so yeah, I'm fluent in both languages, but it's because of my parents' commitment to
Yeah.
education. and
Yeah.
They were so strict. Now I'm super thankful, but back then I was like, no, I just want to
Yeah,
speak
it's a lot of
English.
work.
Yeah, I know. And so yeah, beautiful upbringing. I tell this story often as part of my narrative. When I was 17, my dad was deported, and it impacted me in so many ways. I on the campaign trail, every time I introduce myself, or if it's like a rally or whatever, I talk about this story.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. So what happened? Was he somewhere?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, was it a traffic stop? Like, what was?
No. So he used to cross to Mexico,
Okay.
not the other way around.
Yeah.
To
Right.
Mexico every day, but he had a tourist visa, and so he used to service the manufacturing companies. So in the 90s, NAFTA opened
Yeah.
trade to Mexico
Yeah.
in such a way where you had a lot of manufacturing companies they call them maquiladoras down there. And these are LG, Motorola, I mean, you name it, right? All the major companies manufacture on the Mexican side, on the border. Why? Because of the labor costs, one. But two, the proximity to the United States. So my dad had a tourist visa, and he lived in the United States.
Got it.
And you can only do that for so long if you're a tourist.
Right.
So in other words, he overstayed his visa.
Right.
So he was crossing the border every day, servicing, those companies.
Right.
And coming back home at night and spending the night, in Mission.
Right.
And he bought a nice house, contributed in every aspect of society. Right. He never took anything away from the U.S. Like he didn't even have a job in the U.S. Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so, but one day, he crossed and at the border, the U.S. Customs, right? And they mentioned that he overstayed his visa, so that he couldn't do that anymore. And so, in other words, he was deported.
Wow.
And it was crazy, man, because...
So he went across and he couldn't come back.
He couldn't come back.
Wow. And how long did that happen?
I mean, he got processed and everything.
Wow.
He was in his pickup truck. He had to park, and someone else had to pick it up, and then he was processed and returned to Reynosa, Mexico, which is wild.
That's
right?
wild, yeah.
Because but at the same time, he also procrastinated.
Right.
Because his wife, my mother, is an American. She's a U.S. citizen. His children as well. And he could have gotten his paperwork in order, but he just didn't.
Right. Yeah. Just too busy, working, living life.
And maybe the machista in him as well. Like, I'll get it done some other day or whatever. Which is bullshit, right? I mean, And so when we talk about it, he's like, it was my fault, right? He acknowledges that, right? But it impacted us.
Yeah, you're 17.
In so many ways, man, especially my younger siblings.
Yeah. How many siblings do you have?
2. My brother Alejandro and my sister Ana Gabriela. And Alejandro, he was at the time like 12, 13, 14.
Okay, so you're the oldest.
Yeah, I am. And my sister was like 7, right? And so, man, just imagine, right?
How long were y'all separated from him?
12 years.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man.
That's wild.
And I didn't talk about it for the longest time. I didn't tell anyone. I don't know, man. I feel like I was ashamed, or maybe I just thought it was like something that I shouldn't talk about.
Yeah.
And I was at UT Austin, and I was in all these rooms in the U.S. Senate, working for John Kerry, in the White House, working for Barack Obama, and I never spoke about it.
Wow.
Also, social media wasn't a thing.
Right.
So, it was trending, right? But people.
Well, there's a negative connotation to the word deported. Right.
That, but also, it's just, I mean, you didn't hear the stories.
Right.
Like the way that today we use media or social media wasn't the case back then.
Yeah.
Twitter was like you visited, I don't know, you had a meeting with someone and you posted, we had a meeting that talked about X, Y, and Z. And that was it. And you posted. Now, people are telling stories on social media. Yeah. And you're a storyteller, right? And so there's a lot of power to that.
Yeah.
Because people see themselves as part of your story as a storyteller.
Right.
And I didn't have that opportunity to see other people going through the same thing.
Right.
Now I see it and I hear it all the time, especially today.
Right.
With all the policy talk about deportations.
Right.
It's mainstream.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it online. Everybody's talking about it on TV. And there's so many stories from different angles that it's hard to keep up with, right?
Right.
But back then that wasn't the case.
Yeah. So complete isolation. Like back then, there's you're completely isolated because you don't know who else is going through it.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going through it alone.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to vent. There's nowhere to post about it. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine how that's the word that just keeps coming to mind, that you were just isolated.
But then, eventually, as I matured and grew up, I decided that, there's other people going through the same thing or other issues.
Yeah, you got to own your story.
We got to own your story. We have to own our stories. Why? We can't let other people tell our stories.
That's right.
You can't let other people define your personal narrative.
100%.
And because if you do, then that's you can consider yourself in a way lost if you let other people define your story.
That's right.
No, you know your story. You're not lost. You already know who you are. You already know where you came from.
Yes.
You know where you're going.
Yes.
Even though we have to improvise, as we talked about, right?
Yes.
Even though we're trying to figure out what life is about, you already know where you're going. You know, and that's part of like being proud of your heritage, your culture, right?
Yes.
And that's one thing that I see in San Antonio, man.
Yes.
You know, San Antonians are proud of their heritage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're proud of who they are, and it's such a delicious
Yes.
culture, man, in every aspect of the word.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when you think about your story, I think the ownership of it is first step, because when you decide to own your story, you take back control
Yeah.
of it, and it's very empowering. And I think that, you know, you can, if there's a bad part of your story, that's what everyone's afraid of. They don't want to tell the bad part of the story. But when you own your story, you're in charge of the context around it.
Yeah.
And so you can say,
But why is that? How come people don't want to like share?
well, I think that they're afraid. You know, one of my mentors once told me, he said, you can never tell someone that their story is wrong, but you can tell them their story is incomplete. And I think people don't know how to do that. So you say, let's just say I know a guy who went to prison. For him to own his story is very scary because he doesn't want people to judge him. But for him to say, hey, look, let me tell you the context of how I ended up in prison and what I learned, and how, you know, man, I was a misguided young guy, and I had terrible friends, and he's not making excuses, but the context starts to shape the story. You know, one of the principles I have as a writer is it is impossible to hate someone once you know their whole story.
Yeah.
And I think that people are scared of the rejection of their whole story. But I think it has great empathy. Like, if I were to watch the movie, so like if someone were to watch the movie of your life, and they see the point where your dad goes across to do HVAC work to provide for his family, they see that it has a completely different emotional context.
Yeah.
As opposed to whatever partisan politics, gets seen.
I agree. I agree 100%.
But I'm glad you did it, because when you decide to own it, you're like, look, I can't change it, right? It's true. All I can do is provide the context around it and decide I'm going to use it as part of the ingredients that make me who I am, and I'm going to channel it to where I'm going, which is what you said earlier, which I love. Where are you going, and is your story going to be rocket fuel to get you there?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be handcuffs that ties you to the past? I think that's what everyone has to decide with their story.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's like going through the motions of owning the story is hard.
It's hard. It's scary.
It's hard also because of the society we live in, right?
Yes.
There's a certain degree of acceptability politics
Yes.
included into this mix of owning your story, of trying to fit in, of trying to be.
Yes.
And in the process, right, of trying to fit in and trying to be, leveraging acceptance as a form of growing in your career,
Right.
growing in your community,
Right. Yes.
and that sometimes is a disservice to who we are,
Yes.
our heritage, our culture. I think acceptance should never dictate who you are.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think it's a great point. And the example of it I want to use is where we're sitting. You know, we're at Shotgun Roasters on the historic West Side. I went to middle school right here at the Foya, and I grew up hearing this weird story, which was you can't have too much success or it's viewed negatively, like you're trying to be better than us. Like you think you're better, you've forgotten where you came from.
Yeah.
Which was this weird, it's a weird thing to saddle on someone, to say, actually, no, you want to celebrate. Like, I want to celebrate. I remember one of my sisters in high school, she got a job at a bagel shop. And I didn't know what a bagel was. I'd never heard of a bagel. And she was describing, I was like, what is it? You're describing a donut. And she's like, it's not a donut. And I was like, but it has a hole. And she was like, and I remember thinking, I was like, you think you're better than us? That's what it is. Like, you think you're better? And it was this weird, but I think it goes back to storytelling, which is like this story that I'm scared of you exploring the world.
Yeah.
because I'm insecure about my story. I don't know how to own my story, so I have to tear you down.
Yeah.
And I have to keep you at this level. And I think that it's one of the things San Antonio suffers from in mass is this inferiority complex. And we're both sitting here as dudes that love this city, but it's one of those weird things that I think we have to, as a city, get over.
But do you think it's more an inferior complex, or you think it's conformity? Conformity of enjoying the immediate outcomes of what the city offers, and not trying to disrupt that because it's foreign to what we know. And I say that because maybe some people in the community have not experienced some of the things that you have experienced.
Yeah.
At a greater scale.
Well, I think it comes down to, I think that anybody watching this that's new to San Antonio cannot understand San Antonio without first understanding its poverty. And that's a whole other, 10-hour conversation. But I'll say this, I think
18% of San Antonians are experiencing poverty.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And what was that stat that we're like the most socioeconomically which is from one zip code to like the poor zip code to the rich zip code? It's the shortest distance with the extreme poverty levels in the country.
And it's 78207, which is
where we're sitting.
Yeah, where we're sitting.
Yeah. And I think that one of the dirty underbellies of poverty, I think, is the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one of the things we suffer from. And my best example of it is the toilet paper raid during the freeze. Like you know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows if the news says it's going to be 20 degrees, man, you better go get some milk, and the milk's going to be gone. Toilet paper's going to be gone. Yeah. And that's a scarcity mindset. That's someone saying, "Oh my God, I got to get all the stuff now because I don't know what it is." And I think that's a byproduct, which, by the way, I mean, I've done it. I grew up in it. Yeah. And I think that, to your point, when I left and I moved out and I lived abroad and I saw other things, you start getting a new reshaping of your worldview. And I think that that's one of the things that I want to bring to San Antonio, which
you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are too. And I think it starts with having these conversations. I think that, I remember I was in therapy once, and my therapist once, he told me, he said, because he saw I still had that scarcity mindset. And he said to me, you know what it's like, Lorenzo? It's like if someone looked in the future and said, you're going to live to your 90, and because you're going to live to your 90, if you eat 3 meals a day, you need, I'm just making this up, 100,000 meals. You're trying to go gather 100,000 meals today, right? You're trying to stockpile it. He was like, you can't live your life that way. That's a scarcity mindset. And I just thought, and I was so ashamed, and I thought, you know what, that's right. I can't live my life that way. Yeah. You gotta just, plan for the future and not hoard everything. I was hoarding all of my resources when actually I need to be sharing it. I need to be investing in people and companies and
helping others too.
And helping other people. And I think that scarcity gets in the way of helping other people because you're like, well, I can't share this bread. It's the only slice that I have. Yeah. And that's a really San Antonio thing that I've seen, but I think it stems from poverty. And by the way, I'm not, I think that it's totally fine if someone has that. Yeah. I think that I'm not making excuses for the fact that it's there or where it came from, but I think that is a tumor that we got to treat as a city. We got to treat that tumor because we cannot go around teaching people to grow up in a scarcity mindset.
We can't.
It's fear-based.
We can, and that doesn't mean that we change who we are.
Totally.
As a city, as a culture, as its people. I think, because people fear that if we change that mentality, the keep San Antonio lame mentality, that we are going to be a different city.
Yes.
A different society. I don't think so. I think we at all costs, we need to protect our identity.
Well, this is what I love about your story is that what happened to your father could have sent you down that path.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're like, I'm out for myself. I protect everything, right? I don't risk anything. And you've not done that. Matter of fact, you've done the opposite. You've started several companies. And I think that, where I want to go with that is, and then you came to San Antonio. So I want to know what brought you, and then I want to know, because at some point, like me, you saw its potential.
Yeah.
The glorious potential of San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think what I did was I turned adversity into opportunity.
Right. You have to.
And you have to. And for those that are listening to us, right? Everyone, doesn't matter who you are, even if you come from privilege, everybody has faced adversity.
Yeah. And is going to.
And is going
If you haven't done it yet,
you will.
It's around the corner.
It's like my dad used to tell me, because I used to race motocross when I was a kid. And he said, it's just a matter of time before you break a bone.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was like, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
And it did.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's gonna hit you. There's just no one,
Yeah, and so to your point, to your question, yeah, man, I saw myself as part of San Antonio for many reasons. This is the city that I love. I grew up visiting this city every summer. My parents were obsessed with this city. So like I did every summer camp that you can imagine. My parents saved up money.
Yeah.
And they really wanted me to get the experience.
So I want to, as we say in the tech world, which I hate to say, let's double click that.
Yeah.
Because I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Is that normal in the Valley where people look to San Antonio as the city to do things like that? Is it the big, because I feel like for certain places we're the big city for them.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It's true.
Yeah.
Not just the Valley. I mean, Laredo, Corpus Christi,
Yeah.
and all the cities in the South Texas Triangle.
Yeah. I would even say in Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico too, Monterrey.
Yeah.
That's why you have a lot of people from Monterrey that have their homes here.
Right.
And this is their second home.
Shout out to Santaré.
There you go, Monterrey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
North side of San Antonio.
Yeah.
And also people from the Mexican border.
Right.
Matamoros, Reynosa,
Yeah.
Nuevo Laredo. I mean,
Well, my parents are from Laredo.
There you go.
When they were 18 to 20, they came here. It was the big
Yeah.
city. This is where they came for opportunity.
100%, man. So I would say I saw myself in San Antonio at some point in my life, mostly because I knew the city very well. I mean, dating back to my great grandfather, the story is that he passed away here in San Antonio.
Oh, wow.
He
No
moved
way.
away from the revolution that was happening in Mexico, in Querétaro, and he migrated to Texas. And according to my family, he made his life in San Antonio.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
It's crazy. It's a crazy story.
Wow.
Man.
So you imagined yourself here,
Yeah.
even as a young guy.
Yeah. I mean, I liked the city,
Right.
but then Austin happened. It happened.
The gravitational pull is strong.
And it was UT Austin, right?
Yeah.
It was being a Longhorn and the hype of the city, man.
Shoot.
I must say, there's a hype to it, right? And
Absolutely.
and I was living there when all this change was happening, right? It almost feels like a little bit of that change happening here in San Antonio.
Yeah. What was the change, though, specifically? Just
You had, Austin started recognizing itself not as a small town,
Right.
a small city, right? So this is like 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, I think the city.
So you went to school there when? What?
From 2010 to
Okay.
2013.
Okay,
And I spent 1 year, a year and a half, or 3 semesters at UT-RGV.
Okay.
Well, it was UTPA back then.
Yeah. I remember that.
University of Texas
Yeah,
Pan American.
They
Now-
rebranded.
Now it's UT-RGV.
Yeah.
So I spent
That's funny.
3 semesters there. Had a blast.
Hmm.
I started a magazine. Yeah, when I was back home in Mission, McAllen,
wow.
that celebrated the contemporary Hispanic arts of the region. And I did it for 16 issues, 16 magazines. And we were making money and growing the magazine. We were printing
Yeah.
like 4,000
Come on.
prints. It was incredible, man. And it was called Pulp and Soda. PULP and Soda.
Okay.
SODA. Why? Because Pulp used to be a science fiction, sci-fi kind of magazine back in the 50s. And so I took that essence, and then Soda was just like refreshing, right?
Yeah.
And so Pulp and Soda.
I love it.
And it was, that's how I got into politics. My last issue that we printed, I featured this young up-and-coming state rep, Sergio Munoz. He's still a rep. And he was like, he made the cover, right? And he invited me to work in his campaign. And ever since, I've been involved in politics, right? And also
wow.
because I was passionate about what just happened with my dad.
Right.
And so I was like joining all these clubs, like, learning about policy, studying political science, and he invited me to campaign for him. Funny thing, I'm having a fundraiser this weekend, a Friday, in the Rio Grande Valley, and he's one of my co-hosts.
Oh, that's awesome.
Full circle, man.
Yeah.
But either way, and I also started a marketing company.
Okay.
When I was in the Valley. It was called Easy Melon. And it was a lot of fun, man. I think I spoke to Dax about this at some point in a podcast, I think. And it was a marketing company that developed these cards that were like basically coupons, right?
Yeah.
So wherever you go, you will get a discount with the card.
Yeah.
And so we were tasked with the idea of organizing a bunch of businesses in South Padre Island.
Oh, wow.
Restaurants and bars and... Dude, I'm like 19 or 20, right? And I'm like knocking on the door of these like owners of like restaurants,
Selling.
institutions in South Padre Island.
Yeah.
And there's this kid with this idea that we're gonna have kids,
I love it.
walking around with their cards,
Coupon, yeah.
Easy Melon cards, and they're gonna get discounts. But they're also gonna get data from that card,
Right.
So they're gonna know how many times people go to their shops, and we're gonna promote the restaurants and bars, and man, it became a huge success. We were selling those cards left and right.
That's crazy.
It was wild. And then I sold my shares to someone else who carry on with the business. But I spent like, a full spring break, the entire month, selling cards, man.
love it, dude.
It was good times,
Dude,
man.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had the entrepreneurial bug way before you got it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I gave you a little bit of background of some of my endeavors in the Valley. Also, when I was like 20, just before I moved to Austin to go to UT or transfer, right? I hosted the largest youth get out the vote event, and it was in South Padre Island, and it was with Asher Roth, the guy who used to sing "I Love College."
Yeah.
And then you remember the Cataracts, like a G6, the song.
Yeah.
So I hosted both of those bands, and we registered like over 500 students, man, in South Padre Island, and it was a blast. Bill White was running for governor. Who else? Linda Chavez Thompson, a well-celebrated activist in San Antonio, was running for lieutenant governor, and they both attended that event, and it was awesome, man.
So was that fueled by the story of your father, like because you went from zero to very political in a short time.
Of course, man, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, and I think that happens, right?
Well, that was your way of affecting change.
It was a reaction in a way,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I was not even trying to be proactive. I was just reacting.
Right. Got to get involved.
Well, I mean, I wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
I wanted to see how I could enact change. And that's the thing with our youth today, man, that I wish, more young people got involved in politics, especially even people in their 30s or 40s.
I'll tell you that one of my epiphanies was, in a time where I think it's very divisive out there in partisan politics, I think what I love about local politics is, for the most part, it's not really partisan. Like, potholes are really not Democratic or Republican.
They don't have a political
They don't have a political party.
Yeah.
And I think that it's sort of your most fundamental unit of affecting change.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to affect change, you can do it at a local level.
You can.
And I think that that's sort of my antidote. Whereas, and I would say to anybody out there, like, if you feel hopeless looking at national, even state, I just think local's where it's at. It is always where it's at.
That's why I'm so passionate about running for mayor. But to your question, right, about how I ended up in San Antonio.
Yeah.
So the reason why I moved to Austin, it wasn't because I transferred to UT directly. I spent about 6 months working at the Texas House of Representatives, and then I transferred to UT Austin. But there, man, I don't know. I started learning about San Antonio politics because I was working for a state rep from San Antonio.
Oh, really?
Joe Farias.
Okay,
District 118, which, by the way, he's endorsing me in this race, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, District 118.
Okay, this is fascinating because you're living in Austin, which is, and people, I'm going to get so much hate from the trolls out there. Look, it's a more fun city for young single people. It's just, it's got live music and all the things. And so you're you're young and single in Austin, and you're working on San Antonio.
I was already
policy.
dating Anna.
Oh, okay, yeah.
we've
So you
been
weren't
together-
single, yeah.
No, but I mean, but I was young,
Yeah.
and there's like
And
so
you
much
understand the allure.
Yeah,
yes.
man.
Oh, yeah. It's
especially for single man and single woman.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm not, it's funny going back to our other conversation about scarcity and there's this weird chip on our shoulder about Austin. And by the way, I have no desire. I'm not trying to make San Antonio Austin, but they do have some great things.
We don't want to be Austin.
I don't want to be Austin.
But we've talked about how San Antonio has to be a city where young people see themselves
100%.
finding their significant other.
100%.
And so
they
more-
have that down.
So more entertainment options,
Yes.
a better nightlife,
Yes.
more avenues for young people to
and
have fun.
And shout out to UTSA
Yeah.
for doing what
They're
UT
doing.
did. Double down on downtown.
Downtown.
Bringing
Yes.
thousands of kids downtown.
Yes.
It's gonna change
It's
our
about
downtown.
5,000 kids, man, downtown.
It's gonna be wild.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. And so
It's going to be great. And that's what young people are craving.
they're craving.
Live, work, and play in an area.
Yes.
Right? And that's what we need. Part of my motto of this campaign is our city, our moment.
Yeah.
But a lot of it has to do also with choosing San Antonio first.
Yes.
Because I chose San Antonio.
Right.
And so I want young people, I want our children and grandchildren to continue
Yes.
choosing San Antonio.
Yes.
So when I was working for this state rep, I knew that at some point I wanted to move to San Antonio.
Wow.
I was choosing to move to San Antonio.
Right.
And I did, man. After I graduated from UT Austin, I didn't even think twice. I moved to San Antonio. I know it sounds wild, but I saw myself a part of the city.
Yeah.
I also wanted to go to law school, and St. Mary's was the law school that I wanted to go to.
Okay.
It has a lot of impact
Yeah.
in San Antonio
Yeah.
and across Texas. Everybody knows it, right? And I did. And I started law school. And then I dropped out. Yeah, man. I had the worst grades and also I was already thinking of building Iris city flag at the time.
Right.
And I was already doing so.
Yeah.
Right. And so we won this grant by the MacArthur Foundation. And it was this diversity in technology grant, which was great, to help young Latinos that want to enter the civic technology space.
Yeah.
And it was incredible, man. We won it was like 70, 80K.
Oh wow.
And we were
That's
like-
a serious grant. Yeah.
Yes, especially at that age.
Yeah.
Especially early
Oh
stage.
yeah. That's
And so we made the decision of going full time on this thing, right? And I dropped out of law school and decided to make this a career. And I remember telling my parents that I wanted to be a tech entrepreneur. And you were talking about like Steve Jobs, right? My dad was like, "What are you talking about?
What do you know?
¿De qué hablas, mijito?"
Yeah.
What do you mean, like Bill Gates?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yes, Dad." Like Bill Gates. And he's like, "No."
No, do not do that. Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, and then I'm going to invent an app where you can report a pothole when you take a photo.
Dude.
And you geolocate it. And this is like 10 years ago, man.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
now it's like more doable.
Yeah,
But
it's when it's more common that people know
Yeah.
what apps are, but back then
back then, yeah.
that's like hieroglyphics, bro.
Yeah.
How do you what?
Like you had products and there were a lot of different apps out there in the market, but connecting a city like the city of San Antonio to the regular person on the street to allow them to report something in less than 5 seconds, that's fucking crazy, man.
Also, I want to go deeper on that because I think that's one of the things that I learned. When you and I met, I was working downtown in the entrepreneurial space. And one of the things that I learned from Graham, and for those who know Graham, he's a very successful, legendary entrepreneur in San Antonio, is he said, he told me once, he goes, and it's exactly your story. He said, the world is not, America specifically, is not designed to encourage entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because the idea of any UTSA senior, Trinity senior, Our Lady, say you pick it, the idea of them going home for Christmas break and telling their family, I'm going to drop out, I'm going to start a company, I don't know if my paycheck's going to be on time, no healthcare, no benefits, that is insanity.
So alarming.
And so and the whole and every parent out there is engineered to tell you don't do that.
Don't do it.
But as you and I know, the economy of this country runs on small business,
And entrepreneurs.
on entrepreneurs. Like it runs People think it's run on the big companies.
No.
But there's some finance guy at IBM, and they're trying to figure out how to cut more people.
Yep.
Right? Whereas the small, and I think that this is what I've admired about your journey, is that I think that the future of the city is how do we create thousands of more entrepreneurs to take what you did and
100%.
and to say, hey, look, we get it. Your parents are going to be pissed.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to be happy about this, but we got to do it.
And they were pissed, man. And look, I remember I had to get a job,
Right.
if I wanted to enterprise, because my parents were not going to help me. They helped me already so much, man. You know, they helped me with college.
Right.
All these sacrifices.
Yeah.
And I felt so paralyzed, you know,
Yeah.
being like 25 and
Did you feel like you were letting them down,
yeah, man,
betraying them?
100%.
Yeah.
Worst
Yeah.
feeling.
I know.
And you know, they had already helped me so much, and I'm over here 24 years old, and I'm still trying to figure things out, right? And I'm like pursuing this crazy idea of becoming a tech entrepreneur, fixing potholes. Like, what the fuck, man? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
like it was
Yeah.
so ambitious.
Yeah. Where's the future in potholes? There is. I can see it.
I can see it.
I can see it. Yeah. I don't know if it's monetizable, but I see it.
But you know, I guess I don't know, man. I guess like you got to believe in yourself
100%.
before anyone else
Yes.
believes in you.
Well, and also too, this is the great irony of entrepreneurship, is that your father was an entrepreneur.
He was a small business
he's a
owner.
small business owner.
Well, he didn't. I mean, don't call him an entrepreneur because
Yeah.
he wouldn't understand what the fuck
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He would be like, "What are you saying?
what is that?
I remember when I told him
Yeah.
like tech entrepreneur. He's
Yeah.
like,
¿Qué es eso, entrepreneur?
"What is entrepreneur?
Yeah, you're right.
No
Yeah.
vengas con
Yeah,
chingaderas."
you're a small business owner, Dad. But yeah,
No,
and actually, to his credit, he probably was like, I know what it's like,
Yeah.
the risk and the fear. But I mean,
They were supported though.
Yeah.
They understood. I guess you know what it is, because they were small business owners.
Yeah.
They didn't want me to go through the same challenges they went through.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, everybody that goes through says, I just want you to have a nice, fat paycheck.
life.
I want you to have a nice, fat direct deposit.
Yeah.
The direct deposit that just hits boom.
Yeah.
Every you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, there's just trade-offs with
Yeah.
everything. And by the way, and I'm not one or the other.
Yeah.
Because I respect both of them. I just think that, you know, there's someone out there that needs to see your story and get permission to do it. There's nothing wrong with getting the job. There's nothing wrong with that.
Being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And working in a major firm or company or wherever,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
success,
It's just as valuable.
and you should be proud of that.
Yeah.
Having your 8 to 5
Yes.
is a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
and you should be proud of it,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people out there in the world that don't have the privilege of you that have the 8 to 5.
Right.
Acknowledge that.
Yes.
Enjoy it. It's a beautiful
Yes.
thing, right? Especially if you live in a city like San Antonio,
Yes.
where things are more affordable than other cities,
Yeah.
and you can explore your hobbies, and
Yeah.
they can become something else, right?
Yes.
My point is, like you said it, when I talk about being bullish on entrepreneurship is because I know, like you said, there's kids out there.
Yeah.
There are kids that don't have someone in their family pushing them in that direction. And it's not because they don't want to.
Right.
It's because of the scarcity mindset that
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
Of protecting their children.
Yes.
Of wanting a better life for them.
Yeah.
And-
And there's a
yeah.
kid out there that in their gut they feel exactly the way you felt, which was, I can't explain it, my desire to create this app, but I know it's there. And you thankfully followed it.
Yeah.
And I think that's I just think it's an important aside for someone to see and say, hey, whether you do the path, get the job, awesome. But there's someone else that's like, you need to take the path because, and it's worth the risk
Yeah.
because there's so many added benefits.
And it was hard, man.
Yeah.
It was incredibly hard.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I'd ever done in my life. and so much stress and anxiety, and it was tough, man, getting this company off the ground. And we did, man. But you know, going back to the idea of why I'm passionate about this city, I remember joining the ABLDP program, which is the Alexander Briseño leadership development program that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has here in San Antonio. It started opening so many doors, and I met so many people. But because I was representing the MPO during that program, but when I was part of the MPO, part of doing this program and getting out there was meeting people.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was working on a product.
Right.
And it goes back to what we started talking about. How this city, if you want to get involved, it opens every single door.
Yes.
If you really want to be intentional about it.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm not kidding. I'm not joking on this. Like seriously, if you want to get involved in the city, you will have doors that will open. And that happened to me.
Yes.
I ended up pitching my product to Rene Dominguez, who was heading the economic development team at the city of
the
San
whole
Antonio.
city.
And then he connected me to Hugh Miller, who was the CTO at the IT department
Yeah, I remember
at the
you.
city.
Yeah. He's
And
awesome.
so like all these doors started opening. And here I am, man, pitching City Flag. And they loved it. And Paula Starkup at the time was with, which continues to lead the 311 department. I mean, really like what we have to show, had to show. And you know who was the catalyst in all this too was Jose da Cruz, man. He
Shout
was,
out.
Yeah,
Another
shout out,
Tafoya Toro.
Yeah. Great guy, man.
Great guy.
I love that guy. So he was starting the innovation office.
Yeah.
So part of his responsibility was also pushing for more efficiency inside of government and inside of departments. So we had several people that were excited about this product, but then they put it out for a bidding, an RFP, and it became incredibly hard, man, because we had no experience in terms of applying to an RFP and all that. But we ultimately won because we had local points and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And the certification of being a minority-owned business, like it helped us.
Yeah.
So when we
That's
talk
awesome.
about that, let's not forget that those type of opportunities in terms of awarding points for being a minority-owned business,
they really
as a
help.
beta and all that. It helps. It helped me, and now I have created jobs,
Right.
like almost 100 jobs.
Yeah. That's
And so
that's incredible.
yeah, and so we won, and the rest is history, man. We connected 14 city departments, and I remember walking into those meetings. And now I can talk about this openly. I don't care.
Yeah.
But all the department heads were so at odds.
Yeah.
What we had to offer,
Right.
Which was a platform that would create all this transparency, and you would see every single request in your city open, meaning that the city had not fixed that part.
Right. It's
Right?
Crazy.
And the department heads, they didn't like it.
Yeah.
So when we
Accountability?
That's
crazy.
They were like, okay, like you're gonna put us to work, right?
Right.
And so, and by the way, man, they're incredible people, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
fast forward today,
Yeah.
they're thankful for the product,
Yeah.
and in a way, we made their lives easier,
Right.
Right? I mean, we connected a lot of dots that were not centralized, but it goes to show that sometimes when you're faced with the unknown, it's really hard for you to visualize what the outcome or end result is going to be of a product, service, or even leadership.
Right. Right.
And it's so important to believe in yourself in those moments as an entrepreneur, for example. And we pushed through and we made it happen, man. And today, the tool is widely celebrated, almost 10 years already, and it's widely used. Hundreds of thousands of people have used it.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to cheers to the jobs because
There you
that's,
go, man.
I think that, as we know, people don't realize how hard it is to create one good job.